Welcome to the fourth of six in the Belfast Met Design Workshop webinar series, an introduction to design thinking. For anyone that needs to get in touch, more details on how Belfast Met can support your business, just email us at businessdevelopment@belfastmet.ac.uk or at E3_Belfast Met on Twitter. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Carlos Latch. I've been involved with many aspects of product development for over 20 years. I've been an engineer and a designer in the aerospace, the automotive, the medical, consumer product and heavy equipment industries. I've headed design teams, as well as just being a cog in the development process in companies both large and small. I've managed projects from a few £100 up to over £1 million. Regardless of the size of the project, I find the process of problem solving very satisfying, and I get a great feeling when I see people benefiting from the products I help to create. I'm currently a design consultant with Belfast Met, as well as running my own product development consultancy, Dark Red Design, based in Belfast. I would like to thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions during the webinar, please put them into the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them at the end if I can. So without further ado, let's get into it. So in the first webinar, we looked at design thinking and what it is. In the second webinar, we looked at tools for empathizing with the users. In the third webinar, we looked at tools for defining our product solution and also ideating that product solution. In this webinar, we'll look at what defines a prototype and ways to test your product solution. So, what is a prototype? A prototype is an early version or model of a product, design, or concept that is created to test and validate ideas, features, functionality, and usability before investing time and money into actually developing that product. Prototyping can be done using a variety of methods, such as sketches, mock-ups, wireframes, or even physical models, depending on the nature of the product or concept. The primary purpose of the prototype is to gather feedback and insights from users, stakeholders, and designers that can be used to refine and improve the design, reducing the risk of costly errors and inefficiencies in the final product. Prototyping is commonly used in fields such as product design, software development, engineering, and architecture. It's an essential part of the design process for creating those successful products or concepts. Prototyping is an extremely valuable step in the design thinking process. It puts the user at the heart of the process, requires you to test your designs on real users, and prototypes make this possible without spending loads of time and money. So, prototyping is important for a number of reasons. It allows designers and developers to test the feasibility of a concept, design, or product idea before investing significant time and resources into building the final version. It helps identify issues and areas for improvement in the design or concept, which can be addressed before the final product is built. Prototypes provide an opportunity to gather feedback from the users and stakeholders, which can be used to refine and improve the design. You're trying to reduce risk and ensure that the final product meets your users' needs. They can help validate assumptions about the product or concepts, such as preferences, behaviors, interactions, which can inform your design decisions and improve the final product. Prototyping helps reduce the risk of costly errors and efficiencies in the final product by identifying issues early on in that development process, saving you time and resources in the long run. Now, no matter how thorough your research is, many people find it difficult to truly conceptualize a product until they have it in front of them. Prototypes allow you to iterate, refine, rework, and make improvements until you have a market-ready product. It's critical for creating those successful products. It helps to ensure that the final product meets your users' needs, is user-friendly, and functions as intended. Prototypes can typically be categorized as either low fidelity or high fidelity, depending on their level of complexity. Fidelity refers to how closely the prototype resembles the final product, whether it's a true-to-life representation or a simplified preliminary model. So how do you know whether to use a low or high fidelity prototype? It all depends on what you want to achieve with your prototype, as well as how complete your design is. A rule of thumb for low fidelity prototypes is to focus on speed and simplicity over detail and accuracy. Low fidelity prototypes are typically quick and simple representations of ideas that allows your designers to explore concepts and gather feedback without investing too much time or resources. So when you're creating a low fidelity prototype, the idea is you use materials such as paper, cardboard, foam and tape for something physical, or whiteboard and digital tools like maybe Sketch or Figma to create rough sketches, wireframes, or mock-ups that convey the basic structure and functionality of a digital design. It's important to remember that the goal of a low-fidelity prototype is not to create a polished final product, but to iterate quickly and gather feedback from your stakeholders. Therefore, it's important to avoid spending too much time on details that are not critical to the design's overall success. And here we have a couple of examples of low fidelity prototypes. The low fidelity wireframe gives the basic layout of the page with nothing more than the boxes representing where the content is being placed. This low fidelity prototype could be used to visualize the layout of the app for initial feedback. On the other hand, the low fidelity physical prototype for the vacuum cleaner is made mostly out of cardboard. Similarly, you could cut and shape cardboard or foam board to resemble the basic shape and dimensions of your product without worrying too much about the details or the finishing touches. In the case of the vacuum cleaner, it is used to test the basic size, shape, and ergonomics of the product. You can have people provide feedback on its layout, size, and overall design, and this allows you to quickly iterate on the design and make changes based on that user feedback before investing more time and resources into a higher fidelity prototype. The goal of a low fidelity prototype is to test out design ideas in a tangible and physical way without investing too much time or resources in creating a fully functional prototype. On the other hand, we have the high fidelity prototype, and it's a more detailed and functional representation of a design or a product that more closely resembles that final product. It's typically created using advanced tools, materials. It may include the majority or complete mechanical functionality if it's a physical prototype, or realistic graphics, maybe animations and other interactive features if it's a digital product. High fidelity prototypes are often used in the later stages of the design process, after your initial ideas have been tested and refined using the low fidelity prototypes. They're intended to provide a realistic and immersive experience for the users, allowing your designers and your stakeholders to fully explore and evaluate the final product before it goes into production. They take many forms depending on the product being designed. In this example here, a high fidelity prototype for the mobile app is a fully functioning version of the app with realistic graphics, animations, and user interface elements. In the example of the high fidelity physical prototype for the vacuum cleaner now, the prototype will be fully functional, allowing users to test its performance, ergonomics, and usability. You could conduct further testing on this prototype, gathering feedback on the final design and making any last-minute changes or tweaks. And the goal of your high-fidelity prototype is for you to create a final product that closely resembles the actual finished product, which allows for rigorous testing and refinement before you go into production. Now, a high-fidelity prototype can be costly and time-consuming, but ultimately it's an investment. It's an investment that leads to a better end product and a more satisfied user base. So, we've covered that prototyping is a process of creating preliminary or scaled-down versions of a product or system to test and validate its functionality, its design, and its features. So now we're going to look at some different types of prototypes. Firstly, we have a wireframe prototype, and it uses simple black and white layouts to demonstrate the layout and structure of the user interface. It's used to test the usability and the user flow of the product or system. This is an example of a wireframe prototype for a Facebook page. This wireframe prototype provides a basic structure and again a visual representation of the different elements of the website without any detailed design or specific elements. It allows you to test and refine that layout, its functionality, before you move on to any highly detailed work. A paper prototype is a type of low-fidelity prototype. It's created using paper and other stationary materials. It's often used in the early stages of product design to quickly and cheaply test and iterate on different designs. Here, the example of the paper prototype is for a mobile app. So let's say you're designing a shopping app for a client. To create a paper prototype, you would start by drawing out the basic layout of the app on paper, including the main navigation menu and screens for browsing and purchasing the products. Then you go on to create paper cutouts of different screens with images, icons, and buttons, which can be moved around and rearranged to simulate the user experience. For example, you could create a paper cutout of a product image and place it on the Browse product screen. You can then use another paper cutout to represent a user's finger, simulate tapping on the product image to view more details about it. So by creating and testing different paper cutouts, you can quickly change and iterate on different design ideas and refine the user experience before moving on to more advanced prototyping tools. It can be a quick and effective way to test and iterate those product designs without the need for engaging with expensive software or hardware. Then we have digital prototypes. It's a preliminary version of a product or design that's created using the digital tools and software. So in this example, let's say you're designing a new mobile app that helps people track their fitness goals. You might create a digital prototype of the app using a software like Figma or Sketch. This digital prototype would include the app's user interface, such as the home screen, menus, buttons, and other interactive elements. The digital prototype could also include animations, interactive elements that demonstrate how the app would work in practice. And this allows you to test the app's functionality and get feedback from users before investing in full-scale development. A digital prototype is a valuable tool for designers, developers, and entrepreneurs to test their ideas, refine their designs, again, before investing in the full-scale product. On the right, we have the functional prototype, which is a physical model that demonstrates how a product or design will work in real life. Let's say you're designing a new type of bicycle with a unique folding mechanism. A functional prototype of this bicycle would be a physical model that can be ridden, folded, and demonstrating all the key features of the design. So it likely includes the frame that's designed to fold in a certain way, the hinges and other mechanisms that allow the folding action, and all the add-ons that you would expect on a bike, wheels, pedals, other components that make the bike functional. Everything's adjusted to fit the rider, so you can get a real test of that physical prototype. With that functional prototype, you can test the real-world conditions, and that allows you to identify any areas or issues for improvement. You can also showcase that prototype to potential investors or customers to generate their interest and gain feedback. A functional prototype is another valuable tool for your designers and engineers to bring their ideas to life, and it helps to test their designs in the real world. That brings us to a visual prototype. That's a preliminary version of a product or design that focuses just on the visual appearance of the product or interface. Let's say you're designing a new website for a client. You might create a visual prototype using a tool like Adobe Photoshop or Sketch. This visual prototype would include the overall layout, color scheme, typography, and other visual elements that give the website its unique look and feel. The visual prototype could also include placeholder text, images, gives a sense of the content that will be included, also navigation menus, and other interactive elements that demonstrate how the users will interact with your website. Various design options also allow you to show the client different possibilities and receive some good feedback. Visual prototypes can be used for physical products, whereby digital representations of material textures and colors are applied to 3D CAD models. Rendering software like SolidWorks Visualize or KeyShot can then be used to create realistic images. Here we can see a digital render of a car interior. With a visual prototype, you get a sense of the overall aesthetic of the website or the product, and you can then make quick adjustments to the design as needed. This visual prototype allows you to showcase the design to the client, stakeholders, and again, the idea is you're trying to gain feedback and approval. Another valuable tool for designers, developers, and clients, allowing them to visualize the overall look and feel of the product or interface before they invest in full-scale development. Then we have a rapid prototype, which is a quick and rough version of a product or design that is used to test and validate ideas. This example, let's say you're designing a new backpack with a unique design. You could just create a rapid prototype using card, scissors, and tape. This rapid prototype would be simple, a rough mock-up of the design that can be tested and validated. So this prototype could include a rough cutout of the backpack design. You just fold the card pieces that approximate the shape of the backpack, get a bit of tape or glue to hold it all together. There you go, rapid prototype. You can test the basic functionality and usability of the design before going any further. You can look at it, identify any possible issues, areas for improvements, and then, yeah, you can quickly make adjustments to the design as needed. So rapid prototyping, you can do that to create a variety of using a variety of materials and tools. And yeah, it depends on the complexity of the design. And yeah, just use what you've got. Then we have a virtual prototype, and this is creating use of virtual reality or augmented reality technologies. It's used to test the product's functionality, the user experience, and design in the simulated environment. So let's say you're designing a new car. A virtual prototype would be the 3D digital model of the car. You'll be able to explore it, test for any physical prototypes before any physical prototypes are built. You could use your software to create the model, which then allows you to make quick adjustments and test the different designs options. With a virtual prototype, you could visualize the car from any angle. You could rotate, zoom in on the model. You can test different design options, test how they affect the car's performance, the aesthetics, functionality. You can even simulate your driving scenarios. So using computer simulations, test the car's handling, acceleration, braking, and other performance characteristics. You can test the different materials, simulate how the car will perform with different material finishes, such as types of paint or the types of metals used, plastics. And this you can go on to share with stakeholders, share the virtual prototype with other members of the team, as well as potential investors to gain their feedback and input. So this virtual prototype helps you save time, helps you save money compared to building a physical prototype. And again, it allows you to refine your design quickly and efficiently. Now that we've looked at understanding what prototyping is, it's significant in the design process and the various types of prototypes available. Now we'll look at, being able to put that into knowledge, being able to put that knowledge into practice and create your own prototype. So here we've got some pointers that will help you along the way. So 1, choose the right kind of prototype. It's important to assess your design process's stage as well as the time and resources available before developing a prototype. In the initial stages, low-fidelity prototypes are suitable, but as you approach the product launch, it's recommended to transition to high-fidelity prototypes. Set your concrete goals. It's crucial to have a well-defined objective for your prototype. In simpler terms, what you're hoping to learn from testing your prototype, always keep your problem statement in mind. Use the right tools. So find the tools that meets your needs in terms of features and functionality, whether it's creating a physical or digital prototype, low or high fidelity. When the time comes, this will make the prototyping process much easier. And then, just take action. Design thinking is all about generating ideas and testing them. So prototype as and when you need to. Remember, the design thinking process isn't strictly linear, as we've touched on in our previous webinars, so you can end up creating a prototype at any time. So prototyping and testing, they go hand in hand, which means that after building a prototype, it's essential to gather feedback from actual users. By observing how users interact with the product and soliciting feedback on their experience, you can make informed decisions through iterative prototyping. This approach will help you create a user-friendly and intuitive product that your users will appreciate. So, what's user testing? User testing is the process of evaluating a product or service by gathering that feedback and insights from users who are representative of your target audience. The purpose of user testing is to identify usability issues, pain points, and areas of improvement in the product or service by observing how the users interact with it. User testing involves recruiting participants who match that target audience profile and asking them to perform specific tasks while using the product or service. Testing can be conducted in person or remotely using a variety of methods such as surveys, interviews, and observation. During the user testing process, the researchers may ask participants to think aloud while performing the task and take notes on their feedback, behavior, and performance. The data collected from user testing is then analyzed, and then you use that to make design decisions and improvements on your product or your service. So why is the testing phase crucial? User testing is conducted for several reasons. User testing helps to identify usability issues, pain points, and areas of improvement in your product or service by observing how your users interact with it. The feedback can then be used to make design decisions that improve the user experience and leads to higher user satisfaction. It helps to validate design decisions by gathering feedback from your users who represent the target audience. And then this feedback is used to make changes to your product or service to better meet those user needs. It helps to improve customer satisfaction by ensuring the product meets their needs and expectations. This leads to increased user engagement, user loyalty, and advocacy. It can help reduce development costs by identifying issues early in the design process before they become expensive to fix. Saves time and resources in the long run. It helps your business to gain competitive advantage, providing insights into the user experience that your competitors may not have. This leads to a better product and a better service that stands out in the market. So when should you carry out user testing? User testing should be carried out throughout the design process, from the early stages of conceptualization, right through to the final stages of development. Be sure to test early and test often. So here we're going to outline some key moments in the process where user testing will be conducted. It's conducted at the conceptualization stage to test the initial ideas and assumptions, validate the direction of the product or your service. Let's say your company is developing a new type of ergonomic office chair designed to improve posture and reduce back pain. Before the chair is built, the company may want to test the concept to ensure it meets the needs of the potential users. So first, your company would recruit a group of individuals who are likely to use a chair, such as the office workers who spend long hours sitting at the desk. They would ask them to participate in a test session. And during this session, the company would present a prototype, possibly created from an existing chair, or just the design concept of the chair. Then they'd be asked to provide feedback on the design, such as maybe how comfortable does the chair look? Does the design look like it would improve your posture? What features do they like or dislike about the chair? Then you take note of that feedback and use it to refine the design of the chair. And they will likely create additional prototypes and then continue testing. This type of testing helps the company to create a product, again, that's more likely to exceed in the market. User testing can be conducted at the prototyping stage to test the functionality, usability, and performance of the product. As mentioned earlier, in the case of the vacuum cleaner, it's used to test the basic size, shape, and ergonomics of the product. You could have people provide feedback on its layout, size, and overall design. It's conducted at the design stage to test the visuals, graphics, overall aesthetics. Again, as we saw earlier, the placeholder text and images will give a sense of the content that will be included. Various design options, again, can be shown to the clients, show them the different possibilities so you can get that feedback. And at the development stage, to test the final version of the product or service, and that can identify any last-minute issues that need to be addressed before your launch. In this case, the prototype is fully functional, allowing users to test its performance, ergonomics, and usability. Due to the nature of the iterative process, user testing should be conducted regularly throughout the design process to gather feedback and insights from the users who represent your target audience. By doing so, you want to identify those usability issues, pain points, the areas of improvement early on in the design process. Again, I can't reiterate this enough, before they become more expensive to fix. Now let's look at some testing methods. There are various methods of user testing that can be used depending on the stage of the design process, the type of a product or service, and the research goals. Here we'll look at some of the most common methods of user testing. So we have in-person testing, and this involves bringing participants into a testing facility and observing their behavior and feedback as they interact with your product or service. This method allows for more detailed feedback and is particularly useful for testing complex products or services. For example, a focus group session for a new product. In this scenario, a group of participants are invited to a physical location to try out your prototype of your product and then provide some feedback. Your prototype is a physical model or a digital simulation or a combination of both. During the session, the participants would be observed by the product team who take notes on the behavior and responses. The team may also ask questions to understand how the participants are using the prototype and what improvements could be made. This type of testing is important for identifying potential issues with the product and making improvements that can be fed into subsequent prototypes. Then there's remote testing. This involves conducting user testing online or via video conferencing. This is more flexible. It allows for testing to be conducted with participants in different locations. It's also less expensive than in-person testing. For example, a user testing session conducted via video conference for a new app. This scenario, the app team sends out prototypes of the app to the participants who then install it on their own devices. Then you schedule a video conference call with the participants to observe their usage of the prototype and gather some feedback. During the call, the team may ask questions to understand the participants' experience and any issues they encounter while using that app. So this type of testing is important for testing the app in real-world conditions with a diverse range of users. And it's also more convenient and cost-effective than in-person testing, as it doesn't require your participants to travel to a specific location. Then there's A/B testing. So this involves creating two versions of your product or service and testing them with different groups of users to determine which version performs better. This method is particularly useful for testing design variations or even new features. For example, testing two different versions of a website or app to determine which one performs better in terms of user engagement or conversion rates. In this scenario, the team would create two different versions of the prototype, one version featuring design elements, copy, or user flow. The team would then randomly assign participants to either the A group or the B group and present each group with one of the two versions of the prototype. The team then collects data on the user engagement and the conversion rates for each version, and then statistical analysis is was used to determine which version performs better. This type of testing is important for identifying which design elements or user flow leads to the better user engagement and ultimately a better business outcome. Then we have surveys, and they can be used to gather quantitative data about user preferences, their behavior and attitudes. Surveys can be conducted online, in person, and it's useful for testing a large number of users. Interviews can be conducted in person or online and can be used to gather qualitative data about user experiences, preferences, and behavior. And these interviews are particularly useful for uncovering insights and feedback that may not be captured through other testing methods. Then there's the focus groups, which involves bringing together a group of users to discuss their experiences and provide feedback on a product or service. This method is particularly useful for testing products or services that are intended for a specific demographic or user group. Card sorting is a technique used to help organize and prioritize information in a way that is intuitive for users. It involves asking participants to categorize different concepts or pieces of information into groups based on their own understanding and logic. An example of card sorting in prototype testing might involve testing a new e-commerce website's navigation menu. To do this, you could create a set of cards, each containing a different category or product type, such as clothing, electronics, home goods. Then you would ask your participants to sort the cards into groups based on how they would expect to find those items on the website. Once they finish sorting, you can analyze the results, identifying any patterns or inconsistencies in how your users categorize the information. Based on this feedback, you could refine the navigation menu to better reflect the way users expect to find products, improving the overall user experience of the website. Then we have tree testing, and it's a usability testing technique used to evaluate the navigational structure of your website or application. It involves testing a simplified version of the navigation without the visual design or layout distracting the participants. Here we have an example of how tree testing can be used in prototype testing. Suppose you're testing a prototype for a new e-commerce website that sells shoes. You want to test the navigational structure of the website to ensure that your users can easily find the shoes they're looking for. To do this, you create a simplified tree structure of the website's navigation, which looks like this. You then recruit your participants and ask them to complete a set of tasks, such as finding a specific type of shoe or navigating to a particular page. You observe how they use the tree structure to navigate the website and note any issues they encounter or areas where they get stuck. Based on the feedback from your participants, you can make adjustments to the navigational structure of the website to improve its usability and make it easier for users to find what they're looking for. So the method or methods you choose for user testing will depend on the specific research goals and the resources that you have available. So a combination of methods may be used to gather both qualitative and quantitative data to ensure that insights that you gather are representative of your target audience. So now that you have a basic understanding of the various user testing methods, it's important to focus on the practical aspects of conducting these tests. No matter which method you choose, there are certain steps that you need to follow in order to successfully run your user test. So we're going to start by defining the research goals and what you hope to achieve through your user testing. This helps you to determine the research questions, the method or the methods to use, and the type of participants that you need to recruit. So for example, the objective of the user testing is to evaluate the usability and the user experience of, say, a new kitchen appliance, which is something we touched on in our previous webinar. We determine the target audience for the product or service and recruit participants who are representative of that group. Consider factors such as age, gender, location, their interests, and their possible behaviors. For example, the target audience for the user testing is people who frequently cook at home and are familiar with kitchen appliances. We'll recruit 8 to 10 participants to achieve our research goals. Then we can go on to develop a test plan that outlines the research questions, the method or methods to use, the task that the participants will be asked to complete, and also the metrics that will be used to measure that success. For example, metrics are we're going to use task completion rates, error rates, time on task, and user satisfaction scores to evaluate the usability and user experience of that kitchen appliance. Then we go on to prepare the test materials, such as the prototype or the design, the test script, or any questionnaires or surveys that you may have. Test materials should be clear, they should be concise, and also they should be easy to understand. For example, research questions would be: what are the main usability issues that users encounter when using that kitchen appliance? How can we improve the user interface and the controls of that appliance? What features do users find most useful? Then you move on to conduct the test with the participants, either in person or remotely, as we've shown before, and observe their behavior and feedback as they interact with the product or service. Don't forget to take notes and record the session if possible. For example, your methodology will be: we will conduct a moderated usability test in a controlled environment. Participants will be asked to perform specific tasks using the kitchen appliance while their interactions are observed and recorded. Then analyze the results of the test, including both quantitative and qualitative data. Identify any patterns or insights that may emerge. Then you use this information to make design decisions and prioritize, there's that word again, prioritize areas for improvement. For example, we will analyze both quantitative data such as task completion rates, error rates, qualitative data such as user feedback and comments to identify usability issues and areas for improvement of that kitchen appliance. Then we go on to iterate and improve by making changes to that product or service based on the feedback that we've received during the testing process. And then we continue to iterate and improve until that product or service meets those needs and those expectations of our target audience. So user testing is another iterative process. it requires the ongoing feedback and improvement. And by following these steps, you'll gain valuable insights into the user experience, identify areas for improvement, and it goes on to help you create better products and services. So let's say you've conducted several user tests and you've documented your findings. What happens now? After conducting your user testing, it's important to analyze the results and use the insights gained to make informed design decisions and improvements. Here we have some key steps to take after conducting your user testing. So you organize the data gathered during user testing and analyze it to identify your patterns, trends, and insights. Look for areas where participants struggled, areas where they excelled, and areas where they provided feedback. Based on the insights gained from the user testing, prioritize the areas that need improvement. This can help to focus design efforts and ensure that changes are made where they will have the greatest impact on the user experience. Make your design changes. Use those insights gained from the user testing to make informed design decisions and implement those changes that will improve the user experience. This may involve making changes to your layout, to your navigation, to your features, or the content of your product and your service. Once your design changes have been made, conduct additional testing to ensure that the changes have had the desired effect. This can involve conducting additional user testing or using analytics to track user behavior and engagement. Continue to iterate and refine the product or service based on your user feedback and insights. This can help to ensure that the product or service continues to meet the needs and expectations of the target audience. Even once your product is on the market, you'll continue to run these tests and add those new features and continue to make improvements. Design thinking is all about iterating and reiterating until your product is ready to launch, but it doesn't stop there. Prototyping and testing are absolutely key to create user-friendly products. The insights gained from user testing should be used to inform design decisions and drive continuous improvement. By prioritizing the areas for improvement, make your design changes, iterate and refine your product or services. The goal is to create products and services that are user-centric and meets the needs and expectations of your target audience. So remember to test early and test often. So now let's do the Q&A. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. Let's see. Okay, Alec Chambers, I'm glad you found that insightful, Alec. Have you got anyone else who has any questions? Oh, David's typing away. Oh, none from you. Okay, no problem. Well, that's good. That means that hopefully everything's been clear. Okay, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, Damien. Thank you for coming. Okay. Well, if we haven't got any questions, in our 5th installment of our design workshop series, we will dive into the iteration and refinement process. That's a big part of design thinking. So if you're new to design thinking, I hope you found this insightful. If you've been involved in design thinking already, hopefully a little nugget of inspiration was found. And our 5th installment is on the 13th of April at 1:30 p.m. And if you haven't signed up already, sign up on Eventbrite. If the experience was positive, tell your colleagues. I've been Connor Slatcham. Thanks for your time.